Hi everyone, a very good evening. All right, welcome back to our next episode with me, so personally at the SNRspeaks YouTube channel. It's definitely very amazing to actually have this topic to actually share with you guys on this beautiful evening Saturday. I hope you guys are actually enjoying your lovely, amazing time with your family or your friends. Having dinner kat rumah, right? Just enjoying, just chill and relax. All right. So for today's topic, it's definitely one of the other topics that is besides our common discussion previously at SNR Speaks YouTube channel. So today's topic is specifically about the automotive industry. And I'm sure this topic is definitely very close-hearted to everyone. It applies to everyone. When you talk to anyone about the automotive industry, right? It applies to every focus group, right? To as small people who just recently graduated, who wants to have an option whether to actually pick, from buying a Japanese car or even to buy a Continental car as their first option, right? Right after graduated. For today's topic is definitely very interesting. It's because when we talk about moving forward, when it comes to electrify or not to electrify. So why is this topic very interesting? Not just because we have a wonderful speaker or an expert leader to actually join us to this session, but it's definitely about understanding the trend as of today. Should we be electrifying everything? From our practice. Back in primary school, we usually, our teachers has been telling us like, practice recycling mannerism, right? So you practice all these 3R, like reduce, reuse, recycle. And, we talk about right now to actually own an electric vehicle or EV one day, right? So undeniably, this ecosystem does not just do justice to the household, but of course, in moving forward, we wanted to also achieve a greener environment for our next generation, right? So understanding that when it comes to electric vehicle per se, stepping on a real footstone, everyone must have seen or in the market or probably when you were driving across the streets, right? You can see all these high-end cars like Porsche or even Mercedes Benz to Tesla, right? These are actually the high range of EVs that is available in the market. So is Malaysia really ready to be electrified or not? And can we beat the odds to actually electrify a lifestyle that does not break the bank, right? And moving forward, to actually have it as an option besides just to have an option as of today of diesel, petrol, and moving forward, can we have electric vehicle as part of the options? Right. So for today's topic, we are actually joined by one of the young Malaysian expert leader. I could tell you, it's actually very honored to actually have this santai casual conversation with him. So a little bit of short bio about this speaker itself. He has a tremendous subscribers on YouTube channel. He has for now he has 30,000, and he produces more than 100 videos from a low range of Japanese cars to a high-end continental cars altogether. And what I like most about him, and I adore him very much, is that he is a very humble person. So without further ado, I'm gonna invite Adrian Chia, the editor of WapCar itself. Hi, Adrian. Hello, Adrian. I think I can't hear you. Cool.
Sorry, I was
Right.
unmuted. Yeah,
No
hello Sophia.
problem.
Very excited today to be here to talk about electrification in Malaysia, something that I personally am also very excited and passionate about. It's a topic.
Interesting. Itulah Adrian. When we talk about this electric lifestyle, right? It's definitely where we want to move, push forward. Tapi when we talk about possibilities, right? Adakah is it feasible? Is it convenient? Looking at the landscape of Malaysia itself in terms of these accessibility of plug-in chargings, right? And not just before we go to that, in terms of the conveniency of whether or not orang mampu tak nak beli kereta electric vehicle ni, right?
But
So,
that's a very
yep,
interesting point. Yeah.
yep. So probably before we actually jump in further into the serious or maybe like casual conversation, probably Adrian, you want to share a bit with the audience, like what do you do in general?
Right. So actually, I've been in the automotive industry for close to 5 years now.
Mhm.
Previously was with another publication, and my focus has always been video content creation. I do write as well, not as often anymore. Um, but my passion is about educating Malaysians about choosing the right car for them. Everybody, there's a car for everyone.
Yep.
It's not that you have to buy the luxury brands, the high end stuff that makes it
Yeah.
the good cars. They are not only good cars. They are actually every price range. There's a car for everyone. So
Mhm.
that is my goal in educating Malaysians on
Yeah.
one, choosing the right car, and two,
Mhm.
not breaking the bank when choosing the right car.
Yep, yep, yep. Interesting, Adrian, because me myself, as someone who probably when I first graduated, right, I feel very eager to actually own a car because not to say because of the convenience and whatnot, but of course to actually be at least be one of the first in my gang to actually own a car, right? But without further thinking ahead, generation these days they are more towards like the reputation. Who owns a better car? That means you would have a better living lifestyle altogether, right? So it's actually interesting, having someone who is actually a young icon leader in the automotive industry to actually share, more of an insight. Because when I look at your videos, right, it covers from the very affordable range car to the most high end. So you cater to a 360 wholesome demographic altogether. It's definitely interesting. And having you on board today, pleasant altogether, Adrian. All right. So probably I can actually ask you the first question, like Adrian, what do you think of the of course you have been in the automotive industry for quite impressive a number of years, right? So probably you want to share what are the current landscape during the automotive industry before and after the pandemic, because you see like um during the pandemic itself there's a lot more productions being halted, right? Maknanya kilang tak
Yes.
boleh buka, right? There's so many things that business owner has to pivot. So probably you want to share on your perspective before and after the pandemic of the automotive industry.
Okay, so previously, pre-pandemic days, Malaysia automotive landscape had a very positive outlook. When I
Hmm.
say positive outlook, it's not only just more people buying cars, but also in the region as a whole, there are a lot of investment opportunities. There's a lot of different types of potentials within the industry that if it wasn't for the pandemic, a lot of things would
Mhm.
have progressed. We may see even more affordable cars, better cars being offered to Malaysians.
Mm.
And during the pandemic era, for the past, well, it's coming out almost to 2 years, 1.5 years,
Yep.
a lot of things have been affected. And it's not just about showrooms closing or JPJ being closed or even the factories not being able to operate. Because the automotive industry in Malaysia is a very tight knitted, very expensive kind of industry. It not only just covers the kilang, the
Mm.
showroom, and the after sales. It's never that. You have your suppliers, you have your R&D,
Mm.
you have your designers, um, the whole supply chain, having a car, from your tires, even the little bolts, the plastic bolts that
Mm.
fits into your car, are all manufactured and have a supplier. So when all these kilang being shut down, unable to operate, just because you don't have that one piece of
Mm.
equipment, you may not be able to produce a car.
Mm. Yep. Yep. Correct. Yep.
And just to share some numbers with
Mm.
everyone, is that last year Malaysia we only sold 529,000 cars, which is an
Mhm.
average of about 44,000 cars a month. And this year we forecast to have a little bit higher, but still
Mhm.
very conservative, which is 570,000. But just
Right.
early July, MAA, Malaysia Automotive Association, has just announced that they will revise it downwards 12% of only 500,000 cars.
Mm.
And that would be an all time low for Malaysia's automotive industry within the
Mhm.
past decade. In
Is
June, we only sold 1,921 cars.
in June itself?
In June itself, we only sold 1,921 cars. To put things in
Wow.
perspective, on a normal month, we're doing
Yeah.
about 45,000 cars, or
Yeah.
even 50,000 cars for on a good month, but we
Mm.
only did 1,961. That's a 96% drop. So
Yep.
it's quite concerning. It's quite concerning from
Mm.
industry perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you share about the statistics, right? Numbers usually don't lie, right?
Mhm.
And when you mentioned about 96% drop in terms of the car
Sales.
purchasing, right? Car sales as well, right? That means it reflects to the buying behavior of the local Malaysians as well. They probably have money, right? And considering of all this government giving all these tax exemptions for the CBUs, units and whatnot, right? It's still people are not going outside, probably because most of them they like to test drive cars, right? So
Mhm.
when they don't have the chances to actually have the feeling to test drive the car, it makes them feel like macam well, it defeats the purpose. Because if you buy a car, you
Yeah.
can go anywhere, right? But I think the market about 1,000 plus is actually all the big tycoons, right?
Oh,
Who
they're actually mostly made up of Proton and Perduas who have managed to register the few number of cars.
okay,
But the biggest drop in terms of vehicle sales is not because that people are not buying cars. It's because
okay,
the industry is just closed.
mm,
Uh, Factories cannot produce enough cars to meet consumers' demand
all
because
right,
when a factory closes for 2 weeks, for MCO or whatever PKP,
yeah,
to resume that production line takes
yes,
another week to resume, just to
understood,
resume.
all
And you
right,
have to, you make up for lost time for the 2 weeks that have been lost, and everything just goes on back order. And factories don't operate like restaurants.
all
If you
right,
want, then I'll just mass up one dish for you.
mm,
It's all very systematic. Everything has to be planned out. They have to keep the correct number of stocks. They need to order the right part. It's not just like,
mm,
oh, tada telur. Okay, I go next door 99, go and buy a telur, come back and I continue cooking. It's not like that. You have to make an order, you have to
yeah,
set the right time. And when things gets disrupted like this, and it's very disruptive,
mm-hmm,
it takes a very
yeah,
long time for a plant to recover. Even if the quickest for them
mm,
to turn over, it will take about 2 weeks, a month, just to
mm,
get up to speed. And it's just very difficult. It's just very difficult. And showrooms are closed. Car salesmen are not able to deliver their cars. People want to buy cars,
mm-hmm.
but we are just unable.
Mm. All right. Because when I put into perspective, where people don't, there's a changing of buying behavior altogether. Like for instance, like when I was talking to one of my sales friend, right, who is actually selling a Purdue car, he told me that Sophia people are still buying eventually because Purdue is actually the range where it's affordable where you don't need to test drive, but it gets you to point A and point B. So probably in that range of more an affordability ecosystem, people still buying. But when it comes to what are your thoughts about the high end cars? Do people still go out and purchase? Does that numbers that you mentioned earlier includes the high end brands as well? Hmm.
That number includes a very small number of high-end brands. But
Hmm.
just to put things into perspective,
All right.
Pro Dua sells about 210 cars a year. Mercedes-Benz, the most
Hmm.
successful luxury brand in Malaysia, does about 12,000 units a year. So the disparity is
Hmm.
is very huge when you look at that. Not to say that nobody is buying high-end brands. Mostly, actually, the whole spectrum of cars, people are still buying. People still wants to buy
Okay.
cars because we're Malaysians, like kereta baru, best lah,
Betul.
kan?
Keluar
Boleh
facelift
dapat.
sikit nak beli. Yeah.
Ya, betul. Oh, kereta dah lama sikit, macam sini rosak, sana rosak, tukar baru. No problem. And that actually, it's actually an extension of a bigger problem in Malaysia, which is
Hmm.
our public transport. People in Japan,
Right.
even in China,
Yeah.
or nobody needs to buy a car. There's very little need
Mm.
to buy a car.
Yep.
Mostly they buy a car because of their wants. They take public transport,
Mm.
take the bus, take the train, high speed railway. Everything is very connected. But
Yes.
let's say for me, I live in Subang area. I work in KL. If I were
Yeah.
to take the train and public transport to go all over to KL, it takes me about an hour door to door. If I drive, it
Mm.
takes about half an hour. So it in my
Yeah.
mind, it just doesn't make sense for me to say every day I add one half an hour through sorry, about 1 hour through and for extra commute time by
Understood.
taking
Yep.
public transport.
Yeah. Yep, understood. Yeah, but it's true what you said. All right, it doesn't make any sense, lah. You know, you have to spare another additional 1 hour to and fro just to actually,
Get to work.
get to work.
And
Yeah,
you
just
just
to
get to
get to
work.
work.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a
yeah,
lot more
Adrian,
convenient. Yeah.
betul. Yeah. I mean, if I could also ask you on the second question, right? When let's go back to the statistics that you actually shared,
Yep.
right? With that statistics that you shared, when it comes to like the number of cars being sold, right? And if I could actually ask you on the second questions, like what are your because that cars are actually in comprises of various types, right? It could be EV as well, right? Because I see people buying Porsche Taycan is already on the street, right? So probably you can share your insights about how is the electrifying lifestyle is happening in Malaysia. Are nations going into that culture? Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Electrification is a very big thing in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of passionate people who was very into EV cars, and it has a lot to do with the EV car branding. The
Mm-hmm.
first kind of actually, there's a lot of mainstream EVs, but the popular ones that make EV sexy was Tesla.
Yeah.
And when everybody think of EV, you think of Tesla. Oh, EV cars are very cool. They are very
Yep.
forward thinking. They're future. They are the future. So a lot of people start thinking of that kind. But actually,
Mm-hmm.
EVs has been around for more than a decade.
Mm.
The you have your very EV car is nothing new. It's just that Elon Musk and Tesla managed to make it sound sexy, which is adopted by the
Yes.
masses. Everybody start to pay attention to EV, and in
Yeah.
Malaysia, the problem with EVs is that there are very limited options.
Mm.
If I ask you, currently in Malaysia, on sale, there are only three EVs on sale:
Okay.
Nissan Leaf,
Yeah.
Mini Cooper, and the
Mm-hmm.
Porsche Taycan.
All right.
That's the
The
only
EV Mini Cooper. Yeah.
yeah, the EV Mini Cooper. These are the three. We will just discard all the Teslas because that is either available for leasing or parallel imported. We'll talk about
Mm.
the local brands.
Local brands. Yeah.
Local, sorry, not local brands. The one that brought in officially by manufacturers. There are only three.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at this, it's kind of sad, In other countries, in China, in Japan, Europe, they're basically their local brands, their Proton and Pearl equivalent of their local brands, have
Mm-hmm.
EVs that are super affordable. In
Yeah.
China, you can buy an EV for 20,000 ringgit,
Yes.
twenty
Yep.
thousand ringgit, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a decent car. So in Malaysia, EV is still it's very much a luxury positioning. It's a very
Positioning.
luxurious positioning,
Yeah.
but there are ways to try to get people adopt electrification.
Mm-hmm.
You have your plug-in hybrids,
Yes.
your BMW 3 Series. You see some of them, plug it into a wall to charge it. That
Yep.
is, it uses an engine plus an electric
Yep.
motor, so you have a combination of both. And plug-in hybrids, I feel that plug-in hybrid adoption in Malaysia is not for the right reason. It's being adopted
Mm.
because the car is cheap.
Right.
The reason is being locally assembled plug-in hybrid cars gets a tax exemption. What do you
Yes.
mean by tax exemption is the government will grant special incentives to different brands who manufacture their plug-in hybrids. Basically low emission vehicles or
Mm.
electrified vehicles in Malaysia, you get special tax exemption. And what it results is you get a very high specification car. You get all the goodies, bells and whistles, at a much more affordable price, which attracts a lot of buyers. And then buyers buy
Mm.
it not for the, oh, because an EV, I want to use the low emission, I want the zero emission, I want that electrification lifestyle. No, you just buy it because
Mm.
the car is cheaper.
Yeah.
You buy
Yeah.
it because the car is cheaper, and it's not the right
Mm-hmm.
reason. I know a lot of EV owners. They buy it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't charge their cars. They don't even have a plug,
Yes.
plug at home. They don't have
Accessibility is
charger.
all right. Yep. Mm.
They're just not educated. They're not aware of this kind of EV stuff. To them, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's another BMW that so happens to have a charger, but if
Mm-hmm.
I charge it, it's okay also. So
Mm.
it just the mindset towards EV is very skewed.
Very
However,
skilled. Yep.
fortunately, there's a lot of groups out
Right.
there advocates for electrification vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
My EV owners club is one of them. They are very vocal and really push for electrification in Malaysia,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very exciting to see because it is the future. It is the future.
It's true. It's true. You know, Adrian, when we actually want when I specifically choose this topic, right? It's because I understand that EV is the way to actually move forward. You know, because previously, as someone who also I used to drive a diesel car, and I
Mhm.
love it because of the power and performance. But in terms of sustainability and moving forward, it's not really a car that I want to push forward, right? Besides petrol. So when I look at the market locally, right, when it comes to these full electric vehicle, not PHEV per se, but full electric vehicle, it's some sort of like it doesn't fit the more market medium in terms of like the affordability itself. First, people could either afford it, right, or people would like yeah lah, be affordable for it, or it's just there's no in terms of the accessibilities out there, right? Like for instance, like I think you know, like for a Mini Cooper, right? For you to, when you purchase the car, you will get like some sort of like rebate probably to actually also own the wall charging, right? But if you are staying in a high rise, it wouldn't be convenient for you to charge. Yeah, right.
In
So
Malaysia, the
mm,
infrastructure is a problem, but
mm,
it's not as simple as not having the plug to charge your car, not having the charger to charge your car.
mm-hmm.
A lot of people just think that, oh, government can install more of these kind of chargers everywhere, private entities can have it here, there. It's not as simple as that because our Malaysia, our national power grid needs to be able to support these kind of
Mm,
high voltage, fast charging
fast
uh,
charging, yeah.
chargers. That is,
Mm,
let's say you want to have very sustainable, very um, logical kind of electrified lifestyle. That means you need to have charger at every single R&R. I've been
yeah.
to the UK. I've driven there, and they have three, four, some of them 10 chargers at every single R&R. Every stop you
Mm-hmm.
go, there are
Yeah.
10 chargers, and always somebody is there to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But our national power grid, let's say you have so many, let's say you have thousands, up to tens of thousands of chargers working simultaneously, and these are all very high voltage
Yes.
equipment. Our power grid is just gonna go haywire. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, let's say 1,000 people charge at the same time, and your house just goes off electric. Yeah, that's the kind of problem that will may happen because of
Mm-hmm.
the power grid itself. So it's not as simple as just like setting up more chargers to get people to use EV cars,
Mm-hmm.
but also the type of chargers.
Mm.
We can think about it, a charger you see at Subway Pyramid, your shopping malls, those small ones, actually
Yeah.
are the slow charging types of chargers.
Yes. They are actually. Yep. Agreed. Yep.
It takes up a very long time for you to charge,
Mm-hmm.
sufficient mileage. Let's say you're gonna spend a whole day at the mall, 5, 6 hours, you're gonna watch a movie, do some things, groceries, fine, makes sense. But your car will be there for 5, 6 hours, taking up the spot for other people, from other people.
Mm.
You have to charge 5, 6 hours just to get,
Yep. Yep.
probably not even full battery. And
Yeah.
fast charging, in Malaysia, there are around 500 charging stations, but there are only 12, around 12 of them that are fast charging.
Mm.
And among these 12 is, we know lah, not sure all of them are operational, if you understand
Yes, betul.
what I mean.
Yep. Yep, agreed. You know, like for I think in Subang area we have like several across the petrol pump stations,
Mhm.
and I think most of it are actually not being well taken care. Banyak gila vandalism where even
Betul.
like people curi the cable to charge, and then you have to bring in your own cable to charge.
Your
Itu
cable,
pun,
it's
and it's slow charging eventually. Right?
yes,
Uh,
and it's slow charging.
yeah, it's slow charging.
It
So
doesn't make
yeah, I
sense.
mean,
Let's say you're gonna go to Petronas or at Shell or whatever charging station, petrol station it
hmm,
is. You're gonna charge your EV car there. Okay, fine. You plug
yeah,
it in. What are you gonna do for the next? If you want to get sufficient charge or a reasonable amount of charge, it's gonna
yeah.
take up to hours. What are you gonna do there? Tea life, drink Starbucks. It,
it
it just doesn't make sense.
if well, I could say if people who jenis yang probably like we know retirees, they probably have the capacity to like no time is like nothing for me, so I
Betul,
can
betul,
wait. Yeah, so
betul.
these are actually the segment market for the EV probably for now. Kalau kita jenis yang macam like like we jump here and there, we move from point A to point B in a very instant manner, right? It wouldn't be making sense to us because it doesn't fit the need at the end of the day, right?
Correct. And
Mm,
you see, that's the problem. That's the whole problem with EV lifestyle in Malaysia, the EV adoption in Malaysia.
mhm,
EVs are supposed to be short distance solutions. So for example, kalau
mhm.
you pergi dari rumah ke kerja 20 km, through and
Ada
for
one.
40 km,
Mm,
that's you travel 20-40 km, zero emission. That's the
mm,
point of EV. EV is not, it's not the supposed for you to, let's say you selalu pergi like KL ke Penang, KL ke JB, KL ke Kuantan Kelantan.
yeah.
You don't take an EV for that. You don't take an EV for that. And
Mhm.
it EVs are meant to be used in more urban settings, short distance settings. Even though
Right.
that they are able to have very long range, one full charge can get you up to 500-600 kilometer.
Yeah.
EVs are still mostly meant to be used as short distance. It's supposed to be a solution for that, to reduce their emissions in town, in cities.
Mm.
But as I've mentioned earlier, EV is a very exciting lifestyle. It's just
Yep.
that whether Malaysians are ready for it or not, I would say surely, definitely, it's a definite no.
Mm.
I think I'll share some insights on it. Why do I say no? Firstly, EVs are very expensive.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. Not cheap
Yes.
to buy in Malaysia. Not cheap to
Mhm.
own in Malaysia. EVs have a lot of special components. Let's say uh, anything were to go wrong, for example, a regular petrol car, you can take it to any workshop. They'll take it out. They'll help you repair.
Mhm.
EVs, let's say when you break down, you don't know where to go. You have to go back to the manufacturer. You have to order the parts. It's gonna take a very long time.
Yeah.
Charging up the cars is a question mark. If you are staying in a landed property, that's fine. If you stay in a high rise building, I'm sorry, you're not able to charge your cars, because
Yeah.
right now in Malaysia, there's actually no law or no motion put forward towards what about high rise building? What are their charging
Yes.
infrastructure? Who's gonna
Mhm.
pay for it? I have my friends who live in high rise buildings bought PHEVs, and they
Mm.
actually told the building management, say,
Okay. Yeah.
I will pay for the infrastructure. I will pay to set up the charging box at my parking spot. You can charge it into my electricity bill, but it's just, I'm sorry, we can't do that because there's no framework on how to do this.
All right.
So there are more progressive kind of property management
Yeah.
who are pushing for EV adoption, who are pushing for charging infrastructure.
Mhm.
Ideally, is every single parking bay you have one charging charger, every single one. But the
Mhm.
reality is, maybe for one whole building of, let's say, 400-500 households, you have like
Mhm.
five charging stations, and it doesn't make sense.
Mm. Agreed. Adrian, when you mentioned about this, high rise building maintenance, right? It's true. If I could share a very personal experience with you, when you mentioned about your friends, driving all this very luxury PHEV, I could say, right? Right.
Mm.
They could consider like not to say legally charged, but they curi-curi whenever nampak wall box ke apa, right? Because the plug is universal, betul.
Yes.
So whenever it's just that the problem is that it will eventually give a problem to the battery lifespan because the battery was supposed to be catering for fast charging, but because the
Mm.
building is not supporting for that voltage itself, the high performance fast charging, so it depletes. Bila it depletes long term guna, of course, ada trouble lah. And when you mention about like having EV has a special component altogether, and I believe even plug-in hybrids plug-in electric vehicle PHEV has these push special components altogether as well, right? So it's of course it's true what you said. Malaysians probably in you could say it's no ready for now, right? But what if, let's say, if government really put on initiative in terms of this manufacturing, get more manufacturers to be more active in manufacturing these special components, right? Do you think with the government initiative, Malaysian could be considering on this electrifying lifestyle? What do you say? Yeah.
Yes. Governments played a very big role in terms of EV adoption
Mhm.
because it not only encompasses, let's say, if you want to be a really EV centric country, an EV production hub for not only the country but for the region. We have to think regional. We have to go regional. That means we
Mm.
export our EVs, we make batteries for other countries.
Yeah.
That is the only sustainable way for us to push for mass EV adoption. And you know, the government has a very big role to play in not just thinking of giving out incentives. Okay, you can
Mm.
produce EV, I'll give you how many percent off. You do this, I'll give you how many percent off. That's not the sustainable way to do it
Yeah.
because we have to start from really the whole full supply chain. Let's say you need to develop your suppliers who are able to develop, special capacitors, special batteries for EV specific models. These are not your regular stuff that you can pull off the shelf. These are more the components are more advanced, more demanding to supply for
Mhm.
these kind of high voltage batteries. And not only that, the plant itself needs to have the equipment, have the capabilities, expertise to assemble a super high voltage car. Right now, the
Mhm.
PHEV is actually your regular petrol engine plus
Yep.
a electric motor. It just plug and play. So it's a little
Complete.
bit like a Lego. It's a little bit like an additional. So
Mhm.
it's not too complicated. But let's say you
Right.
want a full back EV. Let's say you take, for example, a Tesla or Porsche Taycan.
Yeah.
The whole structure is different. It's unique. It's specifically made for that EV model.
Mm.
And high voltage is nothing to joke about. And the once you get shocked or it catch on fire, it's a very high risk. So it takes a lot of expertise. The
Yeah.
government has a very it needs to really start from policies on how to push manufacturers to invest to get more people on board in producing mass producing EVs. And not only that, like I mentioned earlier, the infrastructure, the power grid that needs to be upgraded and needs to be able to support these kind of high voltage charging. Something that we all don't think about is the electricity production. Where our electricity
Mm.
come from?
Yeah.
In Malaysia, our main generator of electricity is still coal.
Mm.
That is fossil fuel.
Mm.
And does it make when you have a higher need of fuel consumption, electric consumption, you get
Yeah.
a higher, the cost of having more coals to generate electricity also goes up. So is
Yeah.
it really clean energy? So it is something to think about as well, because the whole idea of EV is zero emissions,
Yeah.
clean, convenience. But if our electricity is still made out of coal, burning fossil fuels,
It defeats the purpose. Yeah.
it defeats the purpose. Exactly.
Mm.
And this full range of questions,
Mhm.
you can't. It's not just one parliamentary debate is gonna solve everything. It really needs
Yeah.
to take. You need to look on it not just on a macro level, but on a micro level.
Yeah.
There are also questions of, let's say the car is at its end of life. What are you gonna do with the battery? How are you gonna dispose the battery?
Mhm.
What are you going
Prob-
to repurpose it?
mhm.
What's the solution? Because right
Yeah.
now these lithium ion batteries, these high capacitor batteries, it's just left there to
It,
rot.
yeah. Probably, if let's say if government wants to take this full initiative, right, it's of course a combination from different expert leaders, right, from the expert leaders of the not just the battery manufacturers, but of course in the policy makers as well. I could probably say it's a blueprint altogether. You know how we're gonna take it from the from the rock bottom issue as well. You know, and having so many whys because we are talking about driving an electric vehicle. What if someone, touch wood, die while driving the car because there's a mishap when it comes to the production altogether, right? And how could we? What are the policies or legal laws out there if let's say if you're charging your car on a public area of charging cable stations, right? Your car explodes. So who's going to be responsible for that? So there's so many. It's true what you said. I agree to that. When it comes to like taking this electrifying lifestyle altogether, it takes a wholesome blueprint, and it's not as simple as like having a petrol, diesel, with our current natural resources
Mhm.
altogether. Yeah, but the initiative is already there. People who actually slowly advocate, like you mentioned, like all these my EV clubs, right? They probably have a different sharing opinions and insights altogether. Probably they have this that forward thinking like Elon Musk itself. But reflecting to our what do we have in Malaysia itself, specifically we need to still we are still crawling, right? We are still depending on like what could like the other Asia Pacific countries could help in terms of we moving forward with this initiative altogether. It's definitely very interesting, Adrian. You definitely have that point very I could say is a bull strike lah eventually. Because bukan senang is eventually nak cakap pasal EV ni and we could have even more than 1 hour sebenarnya.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. My next question would be for you, right? When we talk about, of course, government should really look into not just the incentive and whatnot, but probably for whoever who wants to probably like have the eye or consider going into that EV, right? Probably you can share a little bit like what are the current government initiative to make Malaysia purchase an EV as of for now. Yep.
For now, there are actually not much incentive on buying an electric vehicle. For example, right now the cheapest EV on sale is a Nissan Leaf, which costs 180 plus thousand ringgit.
Mhm. That one is
180
CBU or CKD, is it?
CBU,
CB
CBU. There's no
CBU. Okay.
CKD electric cars in Malaysia yet.
Okay.
Um, but there are more incentives on plug-in hybrids on electrified vehicles that are locally assembled. So mostly the PHEV
Mm,
cars gets the
that's true.
incentives. For if you ask me for pure EVs, no. But Green Tech, it's a Malaysia organization who's pushing for clean energy, vehicles as well, electric vehicles. Sorry,
Mm,
have a zero carbon roadmap, which they plan to say have proposed. They propose 0% excise duty. That means 0% tax on the vehicle on electric vehicles that are fully imported to push the adoption rate up.
mm,
It's a great initiative. Definitely will get more people picking up EV cars, but therein lies another, fundamental issue for the government is our government rely heavily on these kind of taxes, excise duties, sales tax from vehicles. It amounts up to 10 billion in revenue a year. So if
mhm.
you take away all these, let's say more people wants to take EVs and you remove all of these excise duty, that's a big chunk of government revenue. How are they gonna replace it? How are they gonna fill
Yeah.
it up? It's not as easy as saying that, oh, just give incentive for everyone. Sure. If
Yeah.
the car is if an EV car is as cheap as a Myvi or as cheap as a Axia, definitely there'll be a lot of people rushing to buy them.
Yeah.
But like I've mentioned earlier, there's a lot of other question marks here.
Mm-hmm.
How is government going to recoup the loss in revenue? How are they going to keep up with a charging state? Is our
Mm.
national power grid strong enough? Three, charging ports. Who's going to install them? How are we going to
Yeah.
install them? If you live in a high-rise building, are you going to get it? So there's a lot of these kind of questions. And not only that, let's say our emergency rescue team, bomba,
Yeah.
police, ambulance.
Yes.
Let's say, Malaysia, we drive a lot. There are lots of accidents going on every single day. If an accident involves an EV car, it's not as simple as turning off the engine, plugging out the fuel line, and you just
Yeah.
chop the
Oh
car,
my God.
chop the
Yeah.
door to get the person out. An EV car, the whole battery is one single body. You make the wrong move, the car just goes up in flames. And because of
Mm.
the lithium ion battery, you can go Google search on lithium ion batteries
Mm-hmm.
combustion.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of pop, then the flame slowly goes off. The thing just ignites. It just turns into
Ex-
a fireball. It just burns. The
oh.
whole thing just burns within seconds. It's
Mm.
very dangerous. And
Oh.
how do people manage that? How are bombers going to manage that?
Yeah.
Let's say an EV car and EV car knock into each other and they both catch on fire. Hanjo. Seriously, that's
Mm.
very dangerous.
Yeah.
So in
You.
terms of adopting EVs, I think Malaysians are quite ready. Everyone has a car, and having an EV is actually not much different than having a regular car, but you just have to treat it like a smartphone. Just have to uh,
Mm.
tiap-tiap malam balik rumah ingat charge kereta. Kalau tak ada charge, tak boleh pandu, itu je. It's the same like a
Mm.
phone. You don't charge your phone, you can't use it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger question is, how are we going to push for mass adoption?
Right. When you mentioned about mass adoption, right, I could probably share satu dua faktor yang when it comes to security wise, on
Mhm.
safety wise lah. For instance, macam tadi you cakap, what if an two EV bertembung with each other, right? It abruptly just catch a fire and explodes. And that moment, right? You not claim insurance, yeah. When we talk about that perspective lah, insurance, should there be a different insurance when it comes to an EV vehicle? I mean, EV unit.
That's a very good question, actually. For now,
Uh-huh.
no. Let's say you have a regular car. If it's treated as a regular car, and
Mm,
if you accident, total loss lah. Kalau boleh repair lah.
mm,
There's also another question of road tax.
yes.
Right now, our Malaysian road tax is, honest to God, very outdated. It depends on your engine capacity. Kalau engine CC kecil, bayar murah. Kalau
Mhm.
CC besar, bayar mahal. The problem with our EV, the EV road tax structure is depend on the power. And
Mm,
you have your EVs make a lot of power. EVs are very high powered cars. And
yeah.
then Nissan Leaf, you have to pay a road tax of almost 300 over ringgit. That's ridiculous. I'm being penalized for having zero emission vehicle. So what's the point? I might as well just
What's
go
the
and buy
point?
a Honda
Petrol.
Accord,
Yeah.
petrol engine, same bigger engine. I don't have to worry. So
Yeah.
it feels to me that while the intentions are great, the conversations of around surrounding EV is very encouraging,
Yeah.
but it really does take a big change in terms of our mindset and the whole buying behavior of not
Mm-hmm.
just the consumers but also our policymakers to say,
Mm.
okay, guys, we're going to drop all of this and we're all going to switch into EVs. Can
Yep.
you imagine if everybody stops buying MyVs and everybody buys a electric car? That's that's a big chunk of people. Every year you probably get about like 80, 70, 80,000 of EV cars pushing on the road. and you have 80 and 70 to 80,000 less cars pumping petrol, which is one of our nation's biggest income,
Yeah,
petroleum.
betul. Yeah. Adrian, King of Myvi takkan kot. King of Myvi mesti protect Myvi punya.
Kena protect. Tapi
Kenapa?
kalau Myvi jadi electric car, electric Myvi.
Who would have known, right? Mungkin you
Ah,
boleh, who
betul,
would have known,
betul.
right? Ada initiative macam tu, right?
Yeah,
Interesting, interesting.
yes, yes. Nama
Tapi
Myvi
betul,
tu tak boleh tukar, tapi engine dia boleh tukar.
engine dia boleh tukar, betul. Tadi I baru nampak dekat Instagram, there's this one, I think kat Jerman kot, this person memang betul-betul minat this car kot, this Myvi. So dia bawa balik Jerman dan dia tukar seat dia pergi on the left side. So kelakar lah bila I tengok, oh orang minat King of
Ah,
Myvi.
yes, yes, yes.
King of Myvi is the king of road lah, right?
Yes.
Interesting, Adrian, because when we talk about this electrifying topic, right? Macam tadi I cakap lah, kita perlukan more than 1 hour to talk about this because it comprises different whole level of parties. Maknanya from the policymakers to policymakers, the legal action as well, to the end consumer. What do they think? Because when it comes to like government initiative, boleh ada macam-macam.
Mhm.
Tapi in moving forward, right? Kalau Nissan Leaf pun dah harga 180,000, right? Do you think Malaysia can be affordable enough to actually own an EV kalau in the future, right? So what will be like probably a good range of a price to begin with to own an EV unit sebenarnya?
Actually, you have to see
Hmm.
in our 500 plus thousand cars sold in Malaysia,
Yeah.
majority of them are priced below 100,000.
Hmm.
Big chunk of them are cars priced below 100,000. And
Yeah.
if you want to get mass adoption, that is the price range that you have to be at. And
Hmm.
below 100,000, it's actually, I won't say it's easy or difficult to achieve, but to even achieve it, you really have to locally assemble. You cannot be
Yeah.
fully imported. You have to be locally assembled here in Malaysia because
Mm-hmm.
cars that are below 100,000 are all locally assembled. So
Mm-hmm.
that's key point number one. Key point number two is the target audience. Are
Mm-hmm.
they ready for electrification? Because this is your sort of your if you target this kind of mass group, most of them are your M40 and B40.
Yeah.
Are you going to charge them for charging your electricity? Electricity bill is not
Mm.
going to be cheap.
Yeah.
Installing the box, the charging,
Pun
the
mahal.
specific pun, yes, mahal juga.
Yeah.
And service the car. Can you service at
Maintenance wise, yeah.
maintenance wise?
Mm.
Can you service at your Achong workshop outside your house?
Kedai
I
bawah
don't think
pokok.
so. Bawah pokok boleh tak? Tak boleh. But if you Myvi, kalau bawa Myvi pergi bawah pokok, boleh settle, tak ada masalah.
Boleh kata. Betul.
Betul. Tapi kalau tiap-tiap kali kena hantar balik kilang,
Yeah.
that is a question mark as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just to share a little bit of my EV experience. I don't personally own an EV, but I've driven a number of EVs,
All
experienced
right.
a number of them. EVs are life changing. It's life changing because when you step inside, you hear nothing. It's very quiet.
The cabin is quiet,
Whatever,
is it?
it's
Yeah.
super quiet because there's no engine working, there's no
Mm.
engine sound, and everything is just
Mm.
quiet and it's just silence. For one, it's very comfortable because you tak dengar apa-apa dalam cabin.
Mm.
Macam pandu, jangan cakap pandu Myvi lah. Kalau pandu your Honda Accord, kalau pandu your Mercedes Benz, masa tekan engine tu,
Ada
there's a
cracky,
sound.
yeah. Yeah.
There's a sound. Whether is it good or bad, it's is depending on car. But
Mm.
in an EV, it's pure silence.
Pure silence, yeah.
Tak ada bunyi langsung.
Mm-hmm.
And the power is instant. It's very easy.
Yes.
And masa you start kereta, you have your gear change. You have your
Clutch
you,
changing as well, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
When you drive an automatic, you drive it's very
Betul.
uncomfortable. You have that
Yeah.
feeling. Not to say
Mm-hmm.
that it's uncomfortable, but you have that feeling. Once you go into EV, there's nothing. It's just
Mm.
you go, you stop, you go, you stop, you go, you stop, and immediate. It's just such a pleasant feeling. Um, I've driven your Porsche Taycans. I've driven your Tesla Model 3. I've driven some Chinese made
The
EVs,
Neo, is
which,
it? Was it the
sorry,
Neo? Is it the Neo one?
no, it's actually Xpeng.
Oh, okay.
Xpeng. It's a Chinese local, only local Chinese would know it.
All right.
And regardless of which EV that you go to, your Nissan Leaf as well. I love the Nissan Leaf. You do. It's a very different feeling, and it's a very exciting feeling. You get in your car, you just press a
Yeah.
button and you go. Masa
Mm-hmm.
kereta petrol or diesel, you start your car, you have to wait for a while. You have that noise, you
Mm-hmm.
have the smell, and once you start using your EV, it's amazing. It really is amazing.
Do
Kalau
you
pergi
go
shopping,
back? Uh-uh.
I will.
If you have the chance.
If I had a chance, I would definitely would love to have an EV car at home because I dah tak perlu pergi ke petrol station. You have to drive to petrol
Wow.
station. You have to get down with your car. 5 minutes,
Mhm.
5-10 minutes. But EV, you just go home. Balik rumah dah boleh charge.
Yeah.
Pergi shopping mall parking, I boleh cari yang ada charging station, boleh plug in, dapat sikit charge, balik rumah.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think, if possible, everybody, it's the future. It is the
It's the future,
future.
yeah. Yeah.
Our friends, neighbors in Indonesia, in Thailand, even Vietnam, they're also
Mm-hmm.
pushing for electrification.
Yes. Betul. Yeah. They already have Tesla over there, like
They have
manufacturing
Teslas
betul?
over
Yeah.
there. They have
Yep.
Teslas over there. They have high capacity
Mm-hmm.
battery manufacturers. They have a lot of policies in place to push for electrified vehicles. And when you think about it, you
Yeah.
kind of feel kind of sad because Malaysia in this region is supposed to be the leader. Supposed to be a daikor in
Betul.
automotive industry.
Agreed.
Proton
Yeah.
Perodua, local brand, made in Malaysia, by Malaysia, from Malaysia, for Malaysians,
True.
and and we don't even have a hybrid.
Yeah. We don't even have an hybrid of our own
Oh,
manufacturing product that we proudly own. Adrian,
Proton,
yeah, what we say about Proton and Purdue, it's definitely like, everyone knows about it. It runs on a petrol. But when we talk about EV, right? Kalau boleh, when we look, because when we pitch out to our, like regional leaders from Asia Pacific, right? They would eventually compare because they look at Malaysia as a very push forward country, very developing and whatnot. And especially in Malaysia, when I read somewhere in Star newspaper recently, like we are one of the highest purchase cars in Asia Pacific. Like we own our buying behavior nak beli kereta ni tinggi, right?
yes.
So macam sayang is actually and it's actually very, I could say sayang lah, because of the cars options. If we could have an EV initiative input inside that statistics, it would definitely be a pleasant to be among the leaders of a country, right? So we are actually down last to our 10 minutes, Adrian, before we actually wrap up the session. So Adrian, maybe you can share your key takeaways. Tadi pun you dah share sikit like your key takeaways, like Malaysians are ready. You are ready. I am ready to take EV moving forward. But when it comes to like, Malaysians, me and you, some people from my EV club would have been ready to actually take EV on moving forward. But is Malaysia, the policymaker, the legal law writers, or even like associations like
MEA.
associations of MAA, all these bomber security safety wise, are they ready? So probably you can share your key takeaways. Yeah.
Like you said, Malaysians are ready. Malaysians are dying, are craving for these kind of advanced technologies. Want to get excited for
Mm,
these kind of cars. In terms of policymakers, in terms of the associations, all different stakeholders, conversations have been going on. Conversations have been
mm,
going, and I feel that we the country needs to really take a serious look in terms of electrification because this will be the next big economy, green
mm.
energy.
Yeah.
Your manufacturing of batteries, your manufacture of clean energy, parts, components, export. all of these will all come together to become a very healthy, strong economy. There are a lot of investments. People just want to start investing, throwing money into countries
Yeah.
to produce EVs, to
Yeah.
make EV components. But it really depends on, like, in the end, the policymakers on how they adopt these kind of things and whether do they adopt it quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure what the status will be like, because the
Yeah.
national automotive policy until today is still very vague. It's still not
Yeah.
clear. There's no direction. A lot of industry leaders that we speak to are also very hesitant on dumping in the investments to say everyone's ready. Like, say, the moment we have policies in place that are in favor of EV production,
Mm-hmm.
boom, I'll immediately bring all my EV cars. You have the whole range readily available for Malaysians.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
You can see that there's a lot of brands investing into these kind of EV initiatives. You have Green Tech, you have Mercedes Benz, you have
Yeah.
BMW. I'm sure you've seen BMW and Mercedes branded charging stations around.
Transition. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really does depend on policymakers on
Mm-hmm.
whether they grab this opportunity quick enough.
Yeah.
Because at this moment, Hyundai is looking at investing in Indonesia, Toyota is
Yes.
investing in Thailand, and
Mm-hmm.
Malaysia is still relatively quiet.
If I could add into perspective, right, Adrian, when remember when I first introduced, for instance, like owning a Mercedes-Benz EQC would break the bank eventually, because their starting price is actually a price of a house for a probably even an M40. The price is actually when I visited Hapsing Star in KL, they already have this plug-in station for the EQC specifically, because it's something like a very sophisticated charging station. So I was asking the salesperson, like, what is this for? Eventually they check up, this is actually ready for EQC. So EQC is already, I think they already have it in our neighbor country. I'm not too sure about that. But Mercedes Benz, bila high end brands took the initiative on EV, orang yang macam probably yang selalu beli kereta Pro 2, beli kereta Honda range Proton ni semua mungkin agak takut, because orang rasa macam like, it wouldn't be, I want to own an EV, but it wouldn't be affordable, because the high end leaders are actually injecting that. How can they be able to make sure that it's a mass production and it's also available for the mass market yang selalu beli kereta yang bawah 100,000, right? So
So
mm,
brands that are in the mid and lower range price point
yeah.
needs to offer electrification. At this moment, they all do not have
Mm,
pushing into it. Um, yang Honda, Toyota, globally, Honda, Toyota have the technology of electrification. But again,
mm,
it's the question of Honda Malaysia nak bawa dia punya hybrid tech.
mm,
Tapi if you make it in Malaysia, harganya tinggi. Harga jualan kereta tu tinggi.
tinggi.
Tak ada orang akan beli. Unless that's why it's an endless loop.
Endless loop, yeah.
Everyone is ready to say, okay, I'm ready to bring and offer you all of my electrified cars, no problem.
Mm,
But I need to know that my investments are worth it. If you're a
mm,
business, you cannot be possibly making a loss making business.
of course, yeah.
Let's say, if I were to bring in an electrified Honda, for example, electrified Honda, but it sells more expensive than 100,000,
Mm,
kalau range yang Honda City tapi harga jualan dia macam Honda Civic, tak masuk akal.
tak masuk akal, yeah.
Yeah, tak
Yep.
masuk akal. So they
Mm,
have to. It goes back to the policymakers, whether do they give incentive or give some tax breaks on how are they going to work it out to make it a feasible business for example, these kind of brands to bring in your electrified cars. That's the
mhm.
question.
Interesting, Adrian. It's definitely a fruitful sharing session. It's kita bukan saja bukan kita bukan saja korek, but kita cangkul lebih dalam,
Mm,
tentang
mm.
topik electrification ni. Sebab tadi mula-mula kita cakap pasal, all these government initiatives je.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also, of course, about the affordability as rakyat marhain. Seorang kita ni mampu ke tak nak beli EV vehicle altogether. But if I could wrap up the session for tonight as our key takeaway, right? Malaysians are ready. You and I, when we talk about that, having an interest to move forward in terms of the mentality, as simple as kita balik rumah, kita own an EV, kita balik, kita charge, right? And having to understand that this would be the electricity bill that I have to actually commit to lah monthly. Sebab it actually compensate lah to the fuel consumption yang I tak
Yep.
payah nak isi minyak apa semua, right? But it's still about having that push forward green energy mindset altogether, and it saves the environment, right? Because we are not talking about we want to have a good living lifestyle for today, but we want to push forward for the zero emission so that our future generation can live also a greener lifestyle, right? But whether or not Malaysia in general, when we talk about the policymakers, the associations, right, and as well as the rightful security, safety wise, bomber, even the police, right? Are they even insurance panels, right? Are they ready to actually have that personalized written of what if this happens? There's a lot of loopholes that they need to actually penetrate. But in general, I think in Malaysia we already have that macam you cakap lah conversation tu, or else we
Yeah.
wouldn't have Taycan. But is it that probably in to own Taycan, Porsche Taycan is almost 1 million, right? Because Porsche memang brand dia yang more personalized, right? Harga basic dia pun dah almost 600,000, right? Kalau that one could be segmented for those yang memang ada duit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even yang macam right my hand, like if they want to start off, they probably could look at it as like maybe Nissan Leaf or maybe like Toyota Prius, but it's more on PHEV. Oh, even Ioniq. Even Ioniq right now pun tak berapa, right?
Tak berapa.
Menjual? Tak berapa, yeah. So they actually stop production, right? Betul, Adrian? For Ioniq.
They've discontinued the product.
Yeah, so that kind of concern actually is very worrying for end consumers macam kita sendiri. But yeah, it's definitely, Adrian, very great sharing. I would love to actually talk more about this. Probably we can revisit for a second session. Talking more in depth, not just about the policies, but having someone who advocates EV, but someone who is not really supporting EV. They like petrol and diesel in future 10 years in time, like say, right? So, Adrian, probably in the future, if anyone from our end would like to be connected with you, how can they be connected? Yeah. Yeah.
They can visit onto my Instagram. You can message me on Instagram, no problem. Yeah,
Cool.
my handle's on the bottom there.
Yes, guys. If you guys actually wanted to actually be connected with Adrian, you guys can actually be connected with him via Instagram. He's definitely very jovial. Kalau jumpa dia dekat Subang, start say hi. Tapi sekarang work from home kan, so macam tak apa nak jumpa. But it's okay.
Kalau
Just
say
drop
hi,
him.
social distance. Boleh say hi tak apa. Social distance.
Cool.
Okay.
Besides that, you can also have a look at Adrian punya YouTube channel. You guys actually see on my screen, he has macam tadi I mentioned lah, he has done a lot of like videos macam-macam, and he was also mainstream sekarang on TikTok. I like your video TikTok yang you buat pasal the accessories yang tak boleh tambah dekat kereta tu.
Yes.
Oh my god, bahasa you, I was like, damn.
Dah rehearse banyak. Tapi
I
orang
like
Malaysia kena tahu cakap bahasa Melayu lah, bahasa Malaysia. Kalau tak,
that's
macam question mark sikit lah. Yeah. Bahasa campur lah. This is bahasa Malaysia lah, bahasa campur.
Betul, Adrian. Yeah, proud Malaysian over here. I believe you are very patriotic punya person, right? It's true to say language is also very important, especially as a content creator, editor as well. Bahasa sangat memainkan peranan. But I'm sure all of these 30,000 subscribers, right? You ada macam-macam followers dekat social media itself. So Adrian, thank you very much. You have any last words for our You have any last words for just to actually wrap up, stay safe and
Okay.
whatnot.
Yeah. Thank you, Sophia, for this session. I truly enjoyed myself. It was quite a fun session. And yeah, if anyone wants to connect, definitely go over to my Instagram. You can drop me a DM. But say something nice lah. Say something that's worthwhile to reply lah. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
a lot of weird DMs. I'm sure Sophia will understand weird
yep,
DMs when you
yep.
get
Yep,
on
yep, agreed.
social media.
Well, of course, Adrian, now there's so many issues that we can also talk. There's so many things that is very worrying at the moment. Right now, let's change the narrative. If everyone's more
Yeah,
negative, right, siapa nak jadi positif, betul?
betul, betul,
Ah,
betul.
yes,
So,
yeah.
but remember, stay safe. Wash your hands. Stand far away from other people. Um, Hopefully, will things will get better soon, and we'll probably have a physical session with Sophia.
Would love to, Adrian.
Right, right.
Well,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
definitely, definitely. Looking forward for that, Adrian. Now
Yeah.
we are actually having this a basic conversation about electrifying. Of course, moving forward, mana tahu bila kerajaan announce ada new initiative ke apa, kita akan bahaskan lagi tentang topik tu. Right? We're gonna
Boleh.
drill down. Gonna drill down. All right, all right. So yeah. Thank you everyone for actually coming on board for this episode 3 session. To electrify or not to electrify. I hopefully would like to thank Adrian for actually coming on board to actually share this journey of electrifying as someone who is the young icon leader in the automotive
Thank you.
industry.
Thank you.
So I hope you guys who's actually joining us for tonight learn a little bit of a thing or two of whether or not to consider EV for now, tomorrow, or later on. So without further ado, I'd just like to actually also share. Please like, subscribe, and also comment if you guys have any questions. We can actually interact with Adrian on social media. So thank you very much, guys. Have a great weekend and have a great Saturday altogether. All right. Thank you, guys. Adrian, don't leave us.